Hey everyone, so it is Nick here from Childcare Business Growth. We are live with Matt from Family. Hey Matt, I want to say, first of all, massive thank you for you jumping on today. Before we go into tell us a little bit about you, what I want to do really quickly, I just want to give everyone a bit of a background, a bit of context. So Family supported us at our recent event, Childcare Business Growth Live, which was happened 2 weeks ago in Orlando. And we didn't have an opportunity to connect prior to the event to get you guys on. But I think you guys provide an insane amount of value in what you do. You are, one of the best out there in terms of the platform. So what do you want, if you don't mind, Matt, start by telling me a little bit about what problems and challenges you help to solve.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me on the show, Nick. And just want to start off by saying what an amazing event it was 2 weeks ago. Great. My first time in Orlando, and just had a wonderful time. An amazing bunch of speakers. You put on a great show.
Good, thank you. No, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and hopefully enjoyed your first time in Orlando as well.
Absolutely. Never been to a hotel with alligators in it before, intentionally at least. In terms, so I think it's a really great question, Nick. I think one of the things that we talk about a lot at Family is the collaboration gap. So one of the interesting backgrounds to early years in kind of countries all around the world is that it hasn't been there in the way that it is right now for that long. The reality is that this kind of institutionalized early childhood education is really only a handful of decades old. There was a time where, in terms of the degree to which parents currently use it, we've seen an even bigger boom in the last 10 years. And before that, it's been an upward growth trajectory, in particular, as more women enter the workforce, right? More women enter the workforce, there's more of a need, which is fantastic, more of a need for early years education. And there we are. So one of the things that we believe at Family is that it's really important, more important than ever, that those parents who are one part of raising the child and those providers who provide nowadays an even more crucial part of raising those children, that they're connected. And that's really where Family comes in. So we are all about making sure that you can reach every family, that you can understand every single person and every single person in your care. And at the end of the day, when those families are close, we know it makes a big impact on your business. That is word of mouth and parents telling other parents how great a service you provide. It's making sure that invoices get paid on time. We all know that relationships are absolutely essential to debt collection and having to handle those difficult calls at the end of each week or month. And it makes sure that your staff can actually save time, because when parents are involved in putting the information in that you need to run your center, the whole thing just gets way easier.
I love that. So in short, for you guys out there, there are obviously lots of different platforms. And I came across you guys, I think about 5 years ago now. We used you in our particular childcare business. And what I loved about what you guys do, which I think is different to others, is that you provide an insane amount of additional value. So I know we didn't plan to touch on this, but I think it's actually important, because one of the big things you guys do, you provide a lot of helpful tips and advice and guidance, don't you? So it's not just about, hey, here's our platform, but actually you give a lot of training and support, don't you, as well?
Absolutely. And that's kind of why I'm starting off exactly where I am, with our story and what it is that we want to solve, because we can do so much more than just provide software. We really want to be the voice for the early years, and we want to provide that community, exactly like you were doing at your event just a handful of weeks ago. Being in childcare, being in early education, it's lonely. There's not that many people who understand what you're doing. There's not that many people who can resonate with it. And yet we don't necessarily support each other as much as we could do. So our thing is always about saying the information is out there, and then there's other people out there who need that information. So what can we do to grab that content, that information, and make sure that we're providing it for those people who really need it, whether it's best practices from the chains, whether it's curriculum guidance from government, whatever it might be. We really want to make sure that we're providing the best value possible beyond just our platform, so that we can also, and this is what led us to creating the Family blog, which now has like millions of visitors every year, to provide that extra content, whether it's through videos, whether it's through webinars, our family sessions, or whether it's through that written content that we've been doing now for almost 7 years.
I love that. So tell us, Matt, a little bit more about you guys and family then as a whole. Tell us about the problems, the challenges you helped to solve. You talked a lot about bringing that connection together between the relationship between the families, the parents, and obviously the centers themselves. But give us some more examples. Give us a little bit more detail about what you specifically helped to do.
Yeah, of course. So I think at the end of the day, I think most of your listeners today, either they're using some sort of system already, or they're maybe understanding that there's systems out there. Maybe they're holding strong to pen and paper, but they know that there's this array of systems out there. And that's quite different to when we started out. When we started out, 10 years ago, there was still a lot of people who are not yet using a system. So one of the things you have to do these days is explain to people, hey, like, why bother making that shift to a new provider when you have to go through the data migration, you have to go through retraining your staff, you have to onboard your parents again. What's the actual value? And for us, we split that into a few different categories. So the first one being that collaboration side. We started as a parent engagement platform and slowly over the years have built on some of the most technical, financial and occupancy and enrollment tools onto that platform as the years go by. But the fact that we started with that parent engagement piece means everything is built fundamentally around that relationship, so that your invoices are appearing right there in the newsfeed. Parents can pay them with one click. It means that the shared child profile, that information, parents can update that as well as providers. So you're not necessarily having to be the person who picks up the phone, taps into your system and gets through all of those kind of minute admin tasks that end up taking you a huge amount of time. The second thing is that we are absolutely obsessive about keeping family as easy to use as possible. We want family to be customizable. We want to have a deep array of features so that you can do almost everything you want to do in your childcare business with family. But we can't have a platform that works for people unless it's simple to pick up for new staff, unless our customers can be sure that they're going to be able to get on board with parents quickly. So we are absolutely fanatical about keeping things as simple as possible. And that starts with the parent experience. Parents these days, I don't know if you've heard this statistic before, Nick, but I've heard it said that by 2025, I think it's something like 85% of new parents are going to be millennials. This idea of who it is that we are targeting in our childcare businesses is shifting incredibly rapidly. At the end of the day, they expect a modern experience. They expect to be able to get updates from their child and their child's day on their phone in a format that they know and love. And that's why we've kind of based our whole concept around that typical, usual social media feel. And so it means that whether it's practitioners, educators, management, or families, they pick it up quickly. So for us, it's really those two things that separate us, our kind of focus on collaboration and making it easier to connect with all the families in your center, and that focus on being easy to use and simple for everyone associated with that child.
I love that. I love that. So tell us a little bit, Matt, for those that are new to you as a brand, as a company, what countries, where do you guys originate from? So obviously I know the story, but let's tell the listeners a little bit about where you guys are, what, in terms of size, etc., and what you're doing right now.
Absolutely. So we started in 2013, founded by two Danish co-founders, Henrik and Anders. And it all started when Henrik's young child Olivia started in nursery for the first time, what we call out here in Denmark, Børnehale. And he was handed a paper parent book and he was like, it's 2013. Like, is this really what we're going to be doing for the next, 4 years? He's been a tech founder before. He knew that there was an opportunity here. And so that's when him and Anders started this business. To try and solve this challenge. Initially for Olivia's own setting, that was one of their first customers. And over the years, we quickly grew in Denmark. And then I joined the company in 2017, which was just at the start of our journey into the UK market, where we are now the undisputed market leader. So around 20%, depending on how you count it, of UK nurseries and childcare institutions use family. And we've also grown. So we're now in 18 countries globally. We have offices in the US, here in Copenhagen, 2 offices in the UK, and also in Berlin. So we're also one of the major providers in Germany. And I'd say about 3 years ago was us taking our first steps into the US market. And we've now kind of really been taking that seriously in the last year since our co-founder and CEO Anders moved out there to America. And yeah, exactly why we're spending time talking to people like yourselves who've also made that journey into the US and understanding, as well as kind of spending time at your conferences and others, because we think there's a big opportunity for centers in the US to learn from what we've developed and kind of our deep understanding of the sector from elsewhere, and also a huge opportunity for us to learn from those new US customers, develop the platform for what they need, and maybe just try out something new that they've not seen before, because there's been a handful of players really dominating the software side in the US for many years. And we think there's a bit of an opportunity for someone new to come in and change how centers are thinking about their software.
Okay. And why is that? So obviously, from a business perspective, there's the opportunity, but what do you feel, what I think, just to highlight there, is the fact that you bring these other countries, this other experience, these other curriculums, these other ideas, these other opportunities. You've got a lot more, I would guess, diverse experience of those different curriculum plans. So is that where you feel you can add a lot more value as well?
Absolutely. I think it's really interesting on two fronts. Yes, there's lots of differences between a lot of those countries. For example, here in Denmark, we have a primarily kind of public system of early years care. In the UK and the US, it's primarily private, of course, as we know. But yet the challenges all around the world are the same. Staffing, not being able to get the right qualified staff, respect for this vital, important stage of a child's kind of education, the most vital stage of a child's education, ensuring that you can run a business and run a kind of a successful business in a sector that could be challenging with funding demands and with high staff turnover and high staff costs. And so we've learned a lot over the years. And I think one of the interesting things that we've learned from working in multiple different territories is that you can get innovation, that a feature that might be an absolute game changer in one country might be something that no one's thought of in a different country. And then when we release it across the whole platform, a good example of that for us, Nick, is live translation. So we introduced around about a year ago live translation, primarily for our customers in Germany, first of all, because Germany, huge amount of Turkish immigrants, and a lot of parents who speak Turkish as a first language. Now we didn't have the resources to translate the entire platform to Turkish, but we did know we could integrate with providers that would allow parents with one click to be able to automatically translate all of those posts that are coming from the providers. Now we'd heard rumbles of this in the US and in the UK, that it could be an interesting feature, but no one had really tried it before. In Germany, we weren't able to kind of close deals and sell the product into customers because we didn't have this functionality. And yet it's been a complete game changer for us all around the world. And it's just a great example of where an innovation that can start in one country can be like a totally different way of thinking in different territories.
I couldn't agree anymore. It's exactly in principle the way we work with our clients. Someone might have an idea in Australia that no one's even thought about in the UK, US, or wherever. So I can imagine that's going to be a massive opportunity for you, particularly with the US market and Spanish-speaking families, and having that ability as well, because that's an indicated market right now. There's missed opportunities there of communication just from a family perspective.
100%. You go around the world and you ask people, who are the families that you most struggle to reach? And they will always tell you it's the families with English as an additional language, or in this case, German as an additional language, because they're not comfortable always coming into the setting because they're uncomfortable with their own level of English. There's a huge, there's cultural differences. There's all sorts of different kind of challenges. And photos are great for that. And that's been historically how we've always managed to get kind of families to engage in our setting. But at the end of the day, in our software, sorry. But at the end of the day, sometimes you need to get a message across, and you need to be comfortable that and one of the amazing things with this is they can also send you a message back in Turkish or Spanish or whatever it might be, and you can translate that back to English. So suddenly you're having a very comfortable conversation with someone in their home language, and yet you're still able to kind of entirely understand each other.
I love that. And I've got to admit, I didn't even know you guys had done that. So that's a massive thing. One of the other big things I'm excited about as well, as we spoke about yesterday. So one of the big things, lots of our clients, use childcare automation, or they use other platforms for the front end. Okay. So all that communication while someone's making an inquiry. And just to let everyone know, as part of this, as of yesterday, we are now integrated with Family. So what that means is before, so what used to happen, clients would use our front end system to manage all those inquiries and the phone calls and everything else. But then they would pass them over to a platform like Family to then run the day-to-day operation of the center. We're now really pleased to announce that integration is now done. So as soon as you move someone to the stage that's signed up or enrolled, it automatically passes that data across to Family to create that contact record. So in other words, it basically means you don't have to double key that information again. It cuts down on a huge amount of admin. So super excited for that. If anyone wants to find out more, make sure you reach out to us. So Matt, let's give, what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, I always like to make sure we give at least one key takeaway on these podcasts for people. What would be your number one takeaway or number one bit of advice you would give a center right now?
So one of the first thing that came to mind when you mentioned this to me before the call, Nick, was a wonderful setting that we work with in London. Yasmin is the leader of that setting, and I've talked about this a few different times, but she has a really simple tip that I think has completely changed the game in really unexpected ways. And it is simply that once every week, she takes it in turn to ask her different room leaders. So let's say you've got 3 or 4. Let's say you've got 4 rooms in your setting. Each room leader gets asked once a month for them to nominate, and in this case, they just simply do it through the Family platform, nominate a staff member in their setting to be Employee of the Week. And it's an old school concept. We've all heard of Employee of the Week, Employee of the Month before. But in this specific case, the thing that makes this different is she says, I want you as the room leader to explain something that this staff member did in the last month or so that really brought a child further in their developmental journey. And I want you to explain this in exact detail. It might be Hannah noticed that little Isaac was really excited about playing in the water tray. And so she brought in from home these different shapes or different buckets that he could play with because he was really interested in how water was pouring through and kind of really going in depth with that story. And she said this ended up just completely changing the game for her setting on a bunch of different counts. So first, and then what they would do, to finish off the story, what they would then do, they would take that story and they would post that out to all parents. So you could include it in your monthly newsletter. You could put it on your social media. You might want to put it out on, in our case, on the Family platform out to all parents. The first thing this did was it made that member of staff feel great, right? We all know we have a huge retention crisis in the early years, in earlier childhood education in general. And what is the number one thing, apart from being underpaid, that we know about early childhood educators is that they are told all the time, all you do is just play with children. You're just a glorified babysitter. So actually showing that respect for the art of what they're doing, crucially important. The second thing it did was it provided fantastic marketing for their center. They essentially were able to put this out on social media and get, wonderful examples of real great practice in the center. And the third thing it did was it helped it slowly, month by month, teach those parents about the skill of what is happening in your center. Because I know that another thing that lots of centers can struggle with sometimes is that parents have those same attitudes that we just talked about. They don't have respect necessarily always for the educators. They think they know best. They don't understand the craft of what happens in your center. And bit by bit, it really increased that respect of the high quality work that goes on in the center. So for me, that when I first heard that, I just thought that is such a simple, easy to implement activity that hits 3 different pillars of value for your center.
I love that. So and really easy for anyone to take, regardless of having a platform, simple thing to put in place that they can use. And I love that. Love that idea. So nice, simple one for you guys to take away and get in place. And we'd love to hear how you get on with that too. So, Matt, just to wrap it, tell everyone, how do they then get in contact with you guys if they're interested in finding out more? What countries are you now available in if they're interested? And then tell us where to go to find out more info.
Absolutely. So the easiest way to find out about us is just, as ever, it's 2023. You can just Google us. What will happen is you'll type in FAMLY, so it's family, like on my t-shirt here, but without an I. Google will say, did you mean family? And you say, no, I didn't mean family. I meant FAMLY. And you'll find us on there. So we're available in the UK and Ireland, in Canada, in the US, in Germany, just in case we have any German listeners out there, Denmark, Norway, and all over the rest of the world. So those are the areas that we primarily focus on. But if you're interested in finding about more, we're always up for talking to you.
Perfect. And I'd also encourage everyone as well to go and check out some of their blogs. They've got some great content on there where, lots and lots of content from great coaches and speakers from all around the world. So make sure you guys go and check them out for some great value-based content too. Matt, massive thank you for jumping on. I'm super excited about this integration that we've got with you guys now. Lots of our clients were over the moon when we told them last week that integration is now there. So super excited for that. And we look forward to catching up with you hopefully over the next few months and seeing how this integration goes.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on, Nick. Great to catch up.
Appreciate your time. Thanks, man.